So recently, I got to play Project Motor Racing again, and one of the cool things was I got to play it at FarmCon. If you didn't know, Giant Software, who created Farming Simulator, are also going to be the publishers of Project Motor Racing. We got to have a little bit of fun with it. We were driving around, I believe, in what was the Aston Martin AMR Vantage. I could be wrong, it had a different livery than they've got shown on their website. The track we were on was Lime Rock. Actually, my buddy Farmer Cop picked it out. He went first. We're going to have his clips later in the video just to kind of show that off. Unfortunately, we're not able to plug in any capture cards or anything like that, so the only gameplay that we were able to get recorded was what you see here behind the camera. We were also using the Logitech Pro Racing wheel and their Pro Racing pedals. There were no gear shifters or anything like that. Everything was on the column. This was actually the second time that I have played Project Motor Racing, second time at least in the past 3 months. Had a really good time. I prefer using racing lines because it helps me out a lot more. I'm not a professional racer by any stretch of the imagination. I am barely a person that plays racing video games. I try my best, and I just have fun doing it. So please don't be judging any of my braking lines or anything like that. Those left turns are rough. Ha ha! I can't see! Come on, man! All right, we're back on the track!
You're back on the track! I'm back on the track!
One of the things I noticed about playing Project Motor Racing this time around versus the way that it was a couple months ago was the tires. The tire wear, degradation, and just the way that it worked, having to warm the tires up and things like that. It was exactly the way that I would expect it to be in real life. However, it was a feature that was missing, at least from the version that I played a couple months ago in Zurich. This time around, you had to be careful. One wrong move and you were toast. There was actually quite a few times where I put way too much heat into the front tires, or I just didn't have enough heat into the tires to actually have proper grip. Farmer Cop had a difficult time with this as he was really pushing the front wheels and the front tires to their limit. The game overall, though, wasn't too much different than the version that I'd played before, so the way that things handled and things like that really wasn't much different. Although we did get a better look at some of the UI stuff, as well as some of the settings in the game that Farmer Cop got to show off. It's not quite the best look at the UI, however, this is what you can see down at the bottom right-hand side of the screen that we had. I'm assuming we'll be able to change this because this isn't the greatest, at least for somebody like me who's expecting a very normal setup. Nonetheless, this has got your tires on the left-hand side. You can see my left sides and my rear right are toasty. They are nice, bright, and yellow. We've also got the setup on the front right tire, which seems to be nice and normal, kind of going between the blue, green, and yellow that we would kind of expect for it to be sliding around a bit. This was also the only place on the screen where you could see your speed and your gear and things like that. Again, I'm not a big fan of this, so I'm hoping that it changes in the future, or at the very least, that we'll be able to customize it. I assume we'll be able to, but just putting that out there just in case. Next, Farmer Cop got to jump in the seat. Well, before me, but editing magic, if you will. It actually turns out he was using the Aston Martin DBR9, which, interestingly enough, is not currently on the PMR website. Found that very interesting. Another thing that I've noticed while Mr. Farmer Cop's been scrolling through the different cars that he wanted to choose is the liveries that are shown on some of these cars, like the Lamborghini and the Lola, are different from those that are shown on the website. So that gets me very excited that we'll have multiple different liveries to choose from. This could already be a confirmed feature, but I don't know that for sure yet. But, I mean, it's a racing game. Probably be able to customize whatever we want when it comes to these liveries and cars. Next we had Tracks, the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, as well as Lime Rock Park, and in the middle, Kalame, which is very exciting. However, Mr. Farmer Cop pointed and said, I want that one. Good job, bud. Once we got into the settings, on our left-hand side, he had Essentials, Tires and Chassis, Suspension, Engine and Drivetrain, and Pit Setup. These were pretty cool. Unfortunately, I had an action camera with me doing my vlog setup and things like that in the videos there. I did not have a big professional camera like I would normally take to events, so it was quite difficult to actually zoom in and get anything useful. Unfortunately, we may have to wait a little while longer before we see any of this. I would say the biggest issue that Senor Comp had when he was getting started off was getting the tires warmed up. As you can see down at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, everything was blue. So he had to actually get some heat into the tires, and actually the guy that was there said give it a lap or two just to get some heat in the tires before you start pushing, which I found very interesting, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was very cool to see that level of depth and immersion, as well as the way that we're going to be able to do the season mode, the regular mode, career mode. That's it. I'm an idiot. I do have a whole video on that, so if you haven't seen that already, definitely check it out. I will say this, FarmCon is not a professional driver in the sense of a professional racer. Now, he is trained behind the wheel of a few different types of police vehicles and pursuit and things like that, so he does have some very extensive vehicle training when it comes to, well, catching the bad guy. However, I don't know if he'd be able to catch the car in front of him or not. Don't tell him I said that. The most important thing here is that he had fun. I had fun. Everybody that was playing seemed like they really enjoyed playing Project Motor Racing. And I will say I'm super excited to see more about PMR and to be able to play it again, especially after the recent news from Forza, all of the layoffs and things. Forza's been one of my favorite track racing games. I've been a big fan of it since, well, I started playing it with Forza 4. And unfortunately, I don't know if we'll ever see another one, but with Project Motor Racing coming in, it seems like they're taking the best of all of the different simulation racing, simulation game world, if you want to call it that, especially working with Farming Simulator, who are the kings of farming. This is just going to be, I think, one of the greatest racing games that we've seen. I'm super excited about it. Of course, all of that is personal opinion, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say as well. What's your opinion? Are you excited about PMR? Do you want to see more? Let me know. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great day. We'll catch you in the next one.
Oh, still too hot, huh? We're just gonna floor it. Yeah. Yeah. Just the way I like it. You wanna drive?
Talk to him like all-star, ain't no missing my shot. In the game now, never losing my spot. Came from the bottom, got my eyes on the top. MVP, all-star, that's me. Sit back, watch me ball out. When I step in, bring the stars out. In my own pace, won't stall out. Made it to the top, now they all shout.